Hello, I am Reverend Irene Smith, aka Miss Irene for my young peeps. I am the Bible study teacher, and I want to welcome you to Generationally Speaking, the 21st Century Bible Study. Join me each week at the table with my co-hosts and Gen X's, Gen Y's, and Gen Z's, and as we discuss life victories and struggles and the issues we all face, no matter our age, with the Bible, the Scripture being our final, being the final word. My co-hosts today are Pastor Shamika Latte Oliver. Her mantra is building the best you. Pastor Oliver, it's so good to see you. Pastor Shamika, it's good to have you.
Thank you, Reverend Irene. I am super excited to be here today, and thank you for always just been absolutely amazing and just having us here.
All right, and she's also has her ministry on women. Tell us, give me the title again.
Yes, absolutely. I have and actually an interactive private community for women who lead, really helping them to build their bridges in their life so they don't have to do their business and personal brands, by themselves, for God's glory, letting them know that it is for his glory, everything that they do. And it's absolutely awesome.
Amen. And then we have my other co-host. You all know him as that Dallas fan. He is a Washington, D.C. native, and yet he's that Dallas Cowboy fan. I don't know what to say, but let me introduce to you Minister James Durham. He is a mentor for men of all ages, using the Nehemiah principle to build them. And I look forward to the day when he completes that curriculum, that writes that book and hosts that first conference that we can all attend. So hello, Minister Durham. Did the Cowboys win?
No, so we don't need to talk about that. Let's get right into the show. It's always good to be here with you, Reverend.
And our special guest today. Oh man, I was just dialing through some television shows, and of course, I got stopped. I got arrested listening to this young man being featured and telling his life journey. It was so compelling. And I said, oh my goodness, Lord, I would love to have him to come to this platform and to share his life journey. His name is Brother Ronald McCray. And he has written a book, and he teaches and shares his journey from being in the gay lifestyle to being heterosexual. And so I want to say, Brother McCray, welcome to you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Irene, for inviting me to the show.
And so let me first make this statement, because, there's always somebody out there listening. Let me just first say that this narrative, this life journey, this is Brother McCray's story. This may not be your life story, but this is his story. And so whether you agree or disagree with what he says, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day, because this is his journey and he's here to share it with us. And what I do know for sure is in his sharing that we're all going to grow. In his sharing, I know that we're all going to be more mindful of the words that we use, and that we're going to also be slow in our judgment, because sometimes we can be too quick in our judgment, too quick in the things that we say. And that my prayer is that we will be willing to receive everyone, no matter where they are, that we will receive them with love and in prayer. So, Brother McCray, let's hit this journey. So we're going to have him for at least 3 segments. So in this first segment, we want to get to know Brother Ronald McCray. So tell us about your early years, where you were born, your family, your elementary years, and your years in church as a young child.
Sure. So again, thank you all for having me today. My name again is Ronald McCray, and I'm a DMV native. I've lived in the DMV practically all of the 33 years of my life. So when I was a young boy, I was raised in the Pentecostal faith on both my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family. And so I really learned about faith in the church and Jesus by way of like mom's relationship with Jesus and dads and aunties and uncles, but I never had, like, I didn't know him relationally for myself. It was just like a surface or a head knowledge. And so being raised in the faith, I had examples before me of what it looked like to be a follower of Jesus, whether that came with struggle, because nobody has a perfect walk as if we have perfection to offer God. But I saw it all. And it was very good for me to witness at an early age that Jesus was relevant for everybody. And so just growing up, in my household, I have three other brothers. I'm the middle child. There's a 4-year difference between my brothers and I. So I often kind of felt like alone, which I talk about in the book. So I was kind of naturally closer to just my first cousins who were more so around my age. And so I come from a family of preachers and singers, just a variety of different giftings in the kingdom. And as I was coming up, I would say at the age of 9, I began to experience a identity crisis, and that kind of took place when I began to be sexually abused by a close male relative and 2 of his male friends who, they were older than me. And I remember very vividly watching pornography for the first time. And I'm thinking we're just watching this video and, I'm 9 years old, sexuality should not be open for a child at all. And so my innocence was like compromised at such an early age. And I'm watching, what was taking place in the video, not knowing that they would soon practice on me what they saw the men doing to the women. And so I remember running away after the experience was over into the restroom and just washing myself, because I felt like there was like a stain that ran deeper than my skin that I could just wash off, but it felt like there was a stain in like my soul, and there was like guilt hovering over me. And I just remember like asking God to forgive me. And looking back on it, I was just a child, and I had, I guess, believed that it was my fault, and I was kind of forced into secrecy and, not to tell anyone. And so over the years, I just kept it to myself. I didn't tell anybody. I was still, dating females at the time. I, hadn't made any decisions as it pertained to sexuality. I was far too young to even know what sex was. Like, what is it? Why did God make it? How am I supposed to explore it? I didn't have any of the answers to those questions. And so just going through grade school and, going into middle school, there was this raging battle within me where I was able to suppress the attractions that I was feeling toward the same sex. But for so long, they just continued to like grow more and more. And I'm often asked, do I think that sexual abuse was the reason why, I later identified as gay? And I would say no, but it was absolutely an influential factor as to why I began to walk down that path.
Well, I want to go back a little bit, and I want to tell the audience you have a book. It's God Who He Says He Is. And as I read through the book, I noted that in your early years, you did battle some bullying, it seemed like. So talk a little bit about that, being that middle child. And were you athletic? Were you more bookish? Were you outgoing? Were you more, sort of closeted to yourself? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So I was bullied very badly. And it's interesting because I was name called like fag and sissy and gay, like some derogatory terms that are often labeled with, people who exhibit what we perceive to be feminine mannerisms for men. Mm-hmm. And again, I didn't know beyond a very surface level what it meant to be gay or what sexuality was, but people were already labeling me. And, I was both physically and verbally assaulted, and teased, and it just created a question mark for me. I think the biggest question mark about my manliness or my masculinity was the fact that masculinity was like a question mark for me already. My father and I didn't have like the closest of relationship, and the version of masculinity that I received from him was foreign to me because I was the more timid, shy. I wasn't into contact sports at the time. I was more artsy. I liked poetry and singing and gymnastics. And my dad was the rough and tumble type who, grew up in the hood, who, enjoyed contact sports and boxed. I didn't like any of those things. And so there was a disconnect between he and I. And so I began to internalize that maybe there was something wrong with me. And not only as it pertains to him, but the other guys that were around me, they seemed to fit that rough and tumble mold as well. And so the guys that I typically, even before I get to men, I think I began to gravitate more toward women, but I was also bullied by women too. They would call me out of my name. And so now going to men, when I would look around in school, it seemed that the people that I was able to identify with most were gay. So it made me question, well, maybe I really am gay. So there was a lot of things that were going on as it pertained to the whole crisis of identity.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. But I think that in our community, young children, it seems like I've worked with kids for a long time. And I know that one of the first things that they do is name call. And for boys and girls, for the child that's timid or the child who's not into athletics, they tend to say, "Oh, you're this, you're gay, or this or that." And so, name calling, it digs deep. Minister Durham, you had a question.
But yeah, it was right along those same lines. As I was reading the book and I read about the experience that you had and you shared already, and I read about this bullying that you face, and I wanted to ask you, did you feel like you were more so born with this proclivity to liking men, or do you feel that the circumstances and the conditioning kind of pushed you that way?
So I was never of the persuasion that I was born gay, although the attractions would have made sense for me to come to that conclusion because of the intensity, because of how natural the attractions felt. But I believe it was because of my upbringing in the church why my thought process didn't go in that direction.
Yeah, I think that, when a child is called these names, and you make a very good point, is that at 7, 8, 9, because these names kids start calling them these names very early in their development stage. And when you start calling a child by these names, those things stick with the child. Now, the child, to be quite honest, they have no idea of what it actually means, except they know that it's not good. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing they know. And then when children are trying to find that circle of persons that they can be with, that circle of persons that they can be accepted in, sometimes, like you say, the people that accept you may not necessarily be the type of person you are, but it's simply because this is the circle that I'm most accepted in. And I use the example of a child who stays in trouble, a child who gets in trouble at school over and over. You will start to see them be in the circle with the same like-minded kids, because what we call, quote, the good kids don't want them in the circle. So they gotta find that place where they fit in, and that's when they find that place, they fit in it, and it's not because they're necessarily that type of person, but this is because this is the only circle I can fit in. And I think as parents that we all have to be mindful of our children and have conversations. And so let me just ask you this, when you will call those names, like most children, did you ever go home and talk to your mother or your grandmother or your father about, look, they're calling me these names at school? Or is this something, again, that you buried?
I don't think I did talk to anyone about it. I know I talked to my cousins, and I think it was because I think it was because the topic about being gay or homosexuality was it's just something you didn't talk about. It was taboo, especially within the Black family. So I would define that as verbal trauma that I experienced. And so I deeply internalized those things, and I didn't want to tell anyone because then I didn't want them to look at me and say, oh, well, you must be gay, to further that accusation. So it was just something that I carried. I don't ever remember telling any of my parents
Right.
about any of that.
Right. I think that's more commonplace. Pastor Shamika, you are the parent of young children. And so do you have these conversations? Do your children ever come to you? And I know you may have one who may have gone to public school, maybe two, to say that, I've been called these names.
I mean, definitely. I think bullying is not just present, at the school, but I really think that it starts at home first. I know even for me, I got bullied. I got bullied by my sister first. She was older than me. She told me what to do. She told me, really mean things sometimes, and then she was like, come on, let's go and play, So it's like, it's almost like a learned behavior, something you kind of get with, something you kind of like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead along with this. I don't feel like being bothered with the confusion. I don't feel like being arguing. I don't feel like being bullied. So let me kind of make myself feel included. Let's be the get along gang just to keep myself safe. And so I think that as a child, once you find your safety zone, you just start to be like a chameleon. You like, okay, I got it. I'm not hurt no more. I'm fine. I done found my crew. They got my back. Because at the end of the day, you're looking for the person who's going to make you feel safe and who has your back and who's going to be there for you. And it's not always the person that you want to be. It's not always the people that you want to be around. But it's just like, I'm good. I feel loved here. Nobody is now. Once you get in the in crowd, they're not really talking about you, anymore. So now you can find a place to kind of be yourself, in the way, and still find a way of discovering who you are. And I think, even with my children, they've definitely experienced it, but they definitely bully each other right at home.
Okay. Well, I think that bullying, it's one thing to be, it's a light bullying. Bullying is bullying, but your children, and you're aware of it, makes a big difference. But when you are a parent and your child is being bullied at school and you're not aware of it, it becomes a problem. And we're seeing bullying being understood and being put more importance to it as we see young children who are taking their lives as a result of being bullied. And I think that Brother McCray brings up another important point, and that is within the household, and perhaps in Black families, and perhaps among Black men, that the mindset has to change a little bit. That the father can provoke the child in such a way that the child no longer feels comfortable or feels like the father has their back. In fact, they feel almost threatened by the father to the point where they don't go and share. So when I heard Brother McCray said my relationship with my father was not the best, and I know that we say a lot, I heard someone say, you just need to know how to be a man. But what does that really mean, Minister Durham? I hear people, especially Black men, say, you just need to learn how to be a man, as if to say that a man only fits a certain standard.
So That's one of the lies that we are sold coming up as young Black men, what a man is. And we're taught that it's this machismo. But that's not what being a man is. Being a man is being comfortable with being who you are. If that's being sensitive, then it's being sensitive. If it's being hardcore, if it's playing sports, if it's being about books, it's just being who you are. And we have to begin to change the narrative in our culture, just as older men bringing up the younger boys coming up. Like when I was coming up, if you fell down and you hurt yourself, I mean, you can have a major scar, you can twist your ankle, you can break your leg, and they'll be like, don't cry, shake it off, walk it off, walk it off. But no, it's okay to cry if you feel in pain, and then you got to deal with that pain. Don't ignore the pain, because what we're taught is ignore the pain, act like it's not happening, and just poke your chest out and be tough. But that's not what being your true authentic self is, and we have to get away from that. I did have a question for you, Ronald. And I do want to talk about being comfortable in yourself, but I'll wait till we get later in your journey. But you mentioned that it was a family member and their friends who violated you. And my question is, during that time, did you share that with any family members? Was that family member ever confronted? I know in your book later on, you have a one-on-one conversation, and you may share that later, I don't know. But I wanted to know, during that time, did you share that with the family, and did they confront him?
No. So no one knew until I was probably 22 years old. And I was afraid to tell. I was afraid of him. And there's more to the abuse than, as I talk about in the book, than what I shared. And what I will say is that I know I did say this in the book, that I wish that I felt comfortable enough to say that to someone. And it's not to say that I didn't have a relationship at all with the people, like my parents, the people in my home. But I wish I had that level of comfort to be able to say, hey, this is happening to me. Or someone that was close enough to me to confide in them, to tell them what was going on. And as a child, that was a very heavy thing to carry myself, with nobody else really knowing about what was going on. So I didn't realize that I was even carrying it after all those years, until I gave my life to the Lord, and he started dealing with me about forgiveness. And showing me how I had been carrying the trauma with me through the years, and to show me how the trauma had really shaped an identity in me. So sorry, I know I answered that in a long roundabout way, but no, I didn't tell anybody.
So now, as you look back at that young boy, 9 or 10 years old, what is it that you would say to a parent or another young child who was, first of all, what could have been done, maybe now thinking about it from a parent perspective, that may have laid the groundwork for you to feel comfortable enough to share this?
I think it goes back to really having a relationship with your child, knowing your child, being in tune with your child, and making sure that your child knows that whatever they experience, they are safe to bring that to you. And the way that I would say it is, and I heard Pastor Rick Warren say this as it pertains to churches, is your church a safe space? So I would say that to parents, is your home a safe space? Like, are you a safe space for your children? And how do you know that you're a safe space for your children? Being aware of the friends that they keep, having those nightly conversations or those daily conversations with them after school. So while, again, we had a degree of a relationship, it was easy for me to kind of let things just slide under the radar, because I kind of felt invisible sometimes.
Right. I also think that children don't necessarily tell for, like you said, for a number of reasons. One being a sense of comfort. The other being that they have been damaged so psychologically that it becomes difficult for them to find the words to say this thing that has gone on. And I know that sometimes, and a lot of times, and maybe more times than not, people are admonished or told that if you tell what they're going to do, and that becomes, that fear stops you from moving forward. So this person, this relative that your parents and your other ones, they trusted you with this person. They trusted, and they probably thought, oh, this is so good that he's hanging out with these older cousins and they're looking out for him. And I think for parents that we all have to stop, grandparents and aunts and uncles, and really develop this openness with our children and grandchildren, so that they can come to us freely and share anything and everything. Minister Durham, did you have a question?
Oh no.
Okay.
Not at all.
Okay. All right. This has just been so good, and I know that our time is winding up now. So we're going to invite everyone to come back next week as we continue this journey with our guest, Brother Ronald McCray, as we learn more about him moving into this gay lifestyle. And I want you to invite someone to come and hear this, because this is a powerful journey that he's sharing with us, and we'll all grow from it. So I want to leave you with the Psalms 35, and says, "Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me. Fight against those who fight against me. Take up my shield and armor. Arise and come to my aid. Brandish spear and javelin against those who pursue me." Amen. So to my listening audience, I want to say to you, be inspired. Be inspired by all you hear.
And be informed by the word of God.
And be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
See you next week.
See you next time.